And I think we're live. Good evening and welcome. Good evening too. Let's have a quick look in the chat and catch up. Good evening, Nigel. How are you? And welcome. Good evening, Mark Pritchard. And good evening, Paco Ramirez, Dave Oatey, Lawrence Bergasia, Ronnie. Good evening, Ronnie. And Lawrence again. And Mark again. Chris, good evening. Chris, the Spinning Wood Dodger. How are you? Good evening. I hope you're all well. James Wood. James, good evening. James Wood Revival. And good evening, Andy Best, and welcome. Jim Nugent, good evening and welcome. Peter Kipfler, welcome. And Wayne the Woodturner, good evening, my mate. How are you? And Jeffrey Cambrill, good evening to you. Charlie Taylor, good evening. We have Mark and Pete. I've only got Mark on there at the moment, but Pete is there, I can assure you.
I'm here as well.
One thing I'd like to ask you before we go sort of officially live at 7:30, can you hear the lads talking? So I'll introduce you. This is Mark Beckett, aka the Gentleman Woodturner.
Evening, everybody. Hope you're all well.
I hope you heard that. And my other pit crew, without whom I would not be able to carry on as I do. These two lads is Pete Ravenscroft.
I'm not sure if my sound's good because my headset isn't working.
That's good. So hopefully you can hear the lads as well. Good evening, Bill Giles, David Clark, Eldon, good evening. Barry Fisher, good evening to you. Bill Jones, hello. Can somebody just give me a notice in the chat that you can hear both Mark and good. That's great. Thanks, Dave Oatey. That's very kind of you. Because Muggins here last week forgot to turn on a specific setting. Thanks, Mark. Great. So,
question there for you, Mark. Did you use the brass powder?
Yeah, I've already answered it.
Good evening, Martin. I did get your long email, Martin, but I haven't gone through it all in detail yet, but I get the gist of it, and thank you very much for all the information. And when I get a chance, I will go through it all. I really appreciate you taking the time to put that together for me. Thank you. And good evening, Woody. How are you? Welcome. One thing I'd like to say I'll say it again at around 7:30, lads. Number one, I'd like to thank everybody that bought me a coffee, me and the lads a coffee last week. If you do wish to contribute to the channel, I would much prefer if you hit the pinned link to buymeacoffee.com as opposed to Super Chat. Because to be quite honest with you, 40% of your hard-earned cash going to YouTube goes against the grain, as they say a little bit. So if you want to buy us a coffee, then please hit the link, and as usual, we will appreciate it. Thank you. Alan the Woodpecker, good evening. How are you? Just a basic, good evening to you, sir. Mick Lawson, good evening to you. I don't think I've missed anybody. Forever turning, no, I don't think so. Have I? No. Keith, Chris, no. Everybody's there. Everybody's there. As I said, I hope everybody is keeping well. And again, I'll go through this at 7:30 when we sort of officially go live. If you have any questions, and I will not be looking at the chat because that's what Mark and Pete do for me very kindly. So, and they will relay the questions to me. So hopefully I can answer them within the lag period of YouTube and you seeing us instead of a couple of days.
It does look like I might take a breath occasionally so we can get a word in edgeways, but you know, we're fast.
I'll do my best to make sure you can't get a word in edgeways. How's that sound? Is that all right?
Yeah, sounds
Quite
good.
normal, yeah.
Sounds about normal, doesn't it?
Usual state of play.
Yeah, indeed. Andy Llanelli, how are you, my friend?
Hi, Andy Llanelli.
Oh, great. Andy Llanelli is an ether friend of mine from back in God's country in Wales, and he's just announced that he's got his first video on his channel today. So go across to Andy, Posh Firewood, Andy Llanelli, Posh Firewood Green. I presume that's the name of your channel, and give him some love and subscribe. I certainly will be when I finish on here. Good evening, Bram, my old mate Bram. How are you? Nice to see you. Thanks for turning up. And Simon, good evening to you. How do I take my coffee? With a large brandy at the side. That's very nice of you to ask, Simon. Wood turning by Barry, yes. PJE, good evening, good evening. How are you? Welcome. I always say things like this. I think a couple of things to mention. Wayne, the woodturner, my good mate's got a premiere at 8:30. Another friend of mine, Pat Carroll, has a Meet the Woodturner tonight, I believe, as well. And I think that starts at, it's already started, I think, 7 o'clock. And so you can have two screens going or chop between the other. And my old mate Steve Twaddell is also going live at 8 o'clock as well. So those are the ones that I know of. And let everybody know. Alan Milner, good evening to you. How are you? And welcome, of course.
I'll put a link in for Andy's video. You want to copy that one for later, guys?
There's the link for Wayne's premiere.
Yeah, that's good. There's a link there for both Andy and Wayne. Andy's Cornish Creations. Andy, how are you? Good evening and welcome. Nice to see you. Di Prout, good evening to you, sir. Alison Oram, we got a bit of class in at last. Good evening, Alison. How are you? Jason Wheeler, good evening to you, sir, and welcome. Grant Fulbrook, good evening, and welcome to you too. Kevin Howell, good evening. Welcome to you. I've been keeping an eye on the chat. I'm just going to break for a second, and I'm sure you all know what that's for. If I can find it. Oh, there it is. It's amongst my parting tools. Well, I have to say one thing as well. I only have a polo shirt under here and a t-shirt, and it is a very warm, sweltering 21 degrees in my garage. I can't believe it. Because I watered the garden about an hour and a half ago, and the wind was howling. It was not a very pleasant experience. I had a woolly hat on and everything.
Mark's a bit chilly by the looks of it. 16 degrees in my workshop.
16. Well, I got no heat on here whatsoever, and it's 21 degrees.
I did set fire to a piece of wood with my laser about an hour ago.
Yeah.
I overdid the engraving.
You have 11 degrees. Yeah, actually, Martin, it's no way is it 21 degrees outside. It's about, I would think, 12, 13 outside, 14, because it's quite windy. So the old wind chill factor, if you like. Have I missed anybody? Oh, Leona. Good evening, Leona. How are you? I have missed a few. Tony Eastham, Colin Izzard, good evening to you and welcome. Apologies. TJ Turning, good evening. How are you? And welcome. I had missed a few. I do apologise. Let's go back down and make sure. I think. Oh, Rob. Oh, Rob CP. Good evening to you, Rob, and welcome. Nice to see you.
Did you mention Leona?
I did mention Leona. I'll mention Leona again. Good evening, Leona, and welcome.
Hi, Leona. Hi, Rob. Terry.
Colin King. Good evening, Colin. We'll make Colin from down the road. How are you? Jeffrey Gambrill, good evening. 8 degrees in Kent. It's not much different here, mate. I'm just very fortunate. I've got it. It seems to be a bit warmer for some reason in my workshop stroke garage. Have I missed anybody else? No. That's it. David Vaughan, good evening to you. And Leroy, 500. Good evening, Leroy. Welcome. The 90th participant is Leroy. In fairness, Leona, I think you're right. In fact, I'll say good evening, Leona, and make it thrice, not twice. Okay, Lee de Boer, good evening to you. How are you? And welcome, of course. Yeah, they're saying they like the T-shirts, and I think Mark and Pete presented me with those showed me them a couple of weeks ago, and I was totally unaware. They did it completely off their own bats. They did send me an invoice for 150 quid each. I don't know if they were taking the mickey, but I mean, they're worth every penny, of course, but...
Well, I didn't include the shipping. They paid that ourselves.
Yeah, yeah, the shipping. Yeah. Jenny Smith from Mull, good evening and welcome to you. Oh, good. Kaylee DeBoer is peachy. That is good to hear. A couple of minutes to go and the clock will strike 7:30.
I do believe a little birdie's told me that it's TJ Turning's birthday tomorrow.
Really?
Yeah, he's 104.
Never.
Birthday, well done, Terry.
I'll tell you what, Terry. Well, I don't know. I don't know what to say, mate. You're only 6 years younger than me. Douglas Rutherford, good evening. How are you? That's 2 or 3 from Scotland, Bonnie Scotland we've got. Woodworm Paul, good evening to you. How are you? And welcome. Woodworm Paul, you don't win a prize for being the 100th viewer, but there you go. Clive Jeffrey, good evening. How are you? And welcome, of course. Yeah, I don't think we'll go to a break very quickly and just have a quick vape, and then in 1 minute I think we'll get started. You're never 70, surely.
Well, he says he is.
Well, if you're 70, you've got 6 months on me, so I'm 70 in December, and I don't feel a year under 95. Rubin, Dario Shavs, good evening. How are you? And welcome. Okay, guys, it is 7:30, so I will say officially,
I've opened a beer.
good evening and welcome. Thanks for turning up to my live again, and today, or tonight I should say, we'll be covering the scraper in a couple of guises, negative rake as well as standard, and also the parting tool. And this is basic. Good evening, Michael Johnson. How are you? Quick question. Why does everyone make such a fuss about turning funnels? I turned one last week. It was dead easy. Do you know, Michael, I quite agree with you. It's one of the easiest things to do. You're obviously skilled, you see. You want to get a funnel club. Alex, good evening to you. Douglas Miller, good evening to you. Cunning Stunts, my old mate Graham Light, good evening to you. I'm glad I haven't had a drink. Welcome. And I think that's covered. Brian, good evening, Brian. How are you? Brian of Heartwood Turning. Okay, guys. As I explained, I am doing the parting tool, and scrapers, both standard and negative rake. Before I go into this, I have said it previously, but just for everybody, if anybody wishes to contribute to the channel's upkeep, as it were, please click the link which is pinned to the top of the chat at buymeacoffee.com. Would prefer that method because I personally don't like 40% of your hard-earned cash going to YouTube. So if you like what you see, you can buy me and the lads a cup of coffee through that link. Thank you very much. And there are a couple of links earlier on in the chat for both Wayne's premiere at 8:30. Steve Twaddell, I think, is on at 8 o'clock, and also Pat Carroll has a Meet the Woodturner as well. So you can have a few screens open. Just don't shut mine down. I'd appreciate it if you didn't. Okay. Good evening, Philip Greenwood. How are you? Nice to see you. Okay, so we're going to be talking, first of all, about the scraper. Now, there are various types of scraper about. I have three. I have what I term a sort of a standard size scraper, which is 5 mil. And I happen to have a, I think it's 35, is it? 35 degree angle. Some people go 25. It doesn't matter. That's what I like. That's what I have. And that is a standard 5 mil scraper. Then I have a thin, which is 2.5 mil thin scraper, parting tool, sorry. And the reason thin parting tools are useful, it's for, let's say you're taking it, which I'll show you later on in the live. If you want to keep the grain as closely matched as possible, let's say you're taking the lid off, parting the lid off a box, then you have more chance of matching that grain up, but I'll show that in operation later on. And then I have a wide parting tool, which is 10 mil. It's an ex-Badan actually, and I use it as a parting tool, great for tenons, etc. And that's it. You can also get a one-handed thin parting tool, which I believe are about 3 mil in width, which are quite a handy tool. I did have one, never got on with it, so I sold it, but that's by the by. And quite often in starter sets, you used to get what they call a diamond parting tool, which I haven't got either, but I have a picture of one here. And the reason it's called a diamond parting tool is that at the point is wider than the heel of each bevel. So what happens is it doesn't need, it won't bind because it's cutting at a wider point and the shoulder follows, which is narrower. So it goes through the wood, but I still don't like them personally because they are, you can get a 3 mil one, I think, but I just have never seen the point in a personal thing. So we'll go to the overhead camera, and I've got a piece of pine on here. I've got other blanks which I'll be using, but the reason I've got this is just to go through some very basics with you. You can see the grain on here is fairly straight. So matching that grain, if I take the standard size parting tool, and again, the tool rest needs to be just at a height where when you're on the horizontal, you're at center. And the idea of the parting tool, it works the same way as most other tools, is you want the bevel to be rubbing, and then if you lift into the cut, and then what happens is you push forward and you arc, keeping the pressure, lifting the handle, keeping that bevel rubbing. Now I'm only traveling here at 1250 RPM. I'm not going very deep on this occasion, but you will see there what I call the fuzzies and torn grain. I know it's pine, but I've done that for a reason. And that can happen. I mean, it's torn out pretty badly there. That's not so common, but you will get the fuzzies. Now, to negate the fuzzies is I am now horizontal or parallel with the bedways. This is horizontal now. Now if I go in there at the middle and then lift the handle to complete the cut, you will see there, hopefully, a completely clean entry. So that is an alternative way. The fuzzies aren't a great problem really, but if you go in this way, I've now got my entry, so I can carry on lifting the handle and making my cut. So as I explained, that is a way of getting rid of those fuzzies that tend to happen if you start and lift the handle up over and above the center line.
A couple of people have joined. Mike, you've got Stuart Ingerwill and The Art of Wood from Germany.
Good evening, Stuart, and good evening,
Mark
The Art of Wood.
Well.
I'm sorry?
Mark Stroughton.
Mark Stroughton, good evening to you, Mark, and welcome. Now, the thin parting tool, as the name suggests, and I will be parting off something in a minute, but I'm just trying to show the difference between these tools. If you've got, let's just pretend, and I will do on a bigger blank later on, if you've got the wide parting tool, as we just use here, you can see there's quite a wide, it's 5 mil there of parting off. Now, if I use the thin parting tool, which is 2.5 mil, you can see, as if by magic and maths, that is half the width of that. Now, where that comes in to great benefit is when this straight grain isn't such a problem, but if you've got grain going every which way, the wider the parting line, or the wider the parting cut you make, the least likely you're going to get everything matching up well. We can see here that everything matches up. We've got straight grain. But if that's the lid of a box, let's say that's the base of your box here, there's the base of your box, this is going to be the lid. You've also, apart from just parting the lid off, you're going to have to make either a tenon on the body or a mortise, but if you make a mortise in the body, you're going to have to make a tenon in the lid. So the minimum you're going to be able to get away with is another cut to make that tenon. So let's pretend that's the tenon. So you've basically come up to your 5 mil. But if you're using only a wide parting tool, obviously your total amount of wood to take away from that grain is going to be another 5 mil, or maybe 2.5 if you want to get a very small tenon. So you're still going to be almost twice as much there. So a thin parting tool pays dividends. Now if we go down to this wavy stuff, unfortunately it's right by the knot. Now if I do that there, hopefully you can see on the wavy bit, I've still got quite a good chance of matching up that, what I would call wiggly grain. Now if I go over here with the wide or the standard, bearing in mind I still have to do a tenon as well, I'm not going to be matching up. When I put that lid on there with a tenon, it's going to be not matching up perfectly as it would do if I make the incision with a narrow parting tool. So that was the reason of using this pretty awful bit of wood actually, but nevertheless, just to show you the advantages of having a few parting tools in your armory. Now what I'm going to do is to take out the live center.
While you do that, Mike, we've got Shay from BB Turning.
Good evening, Shay. Welcome.
Got Vincent Charlton.
Good evening, Vincent, and welcome.
Dieter Essenbacher's in.
And good evening to you, Peter, and welcome to you too.
Dieter.
Oh, sorry, Dieter.
Yeah.
Right. Good evening, Dieter. I do apologise. I would have seen that. If I'd seen the chat, I would have realised.
Yeah, but we're weaning you off of the chat.
Yes, I know, and it's quite a nice experience, actually. I'm just lining this up, and I use my centre just to line it up in the chuck, because I've made a couple of tenons here for the reason I will show you now. Now, parting off. The parting tool is a parting off tool, is it not? It's also a beading tool. Can be, and quite a few companies, and I'll just go to my face a second, quite a few companies actually advertise what I would term a standard parting tool, the 5mm parting tool, as a beading and parting tool, or parting and beading tool, because you can roll beads with a parting tool, especially the wider one. My 10mm one there, you can turn beads, as I will show you in a minute. We'll do the first thing first and just part off something, because there are a few things, in my opinion, you have to bear in mind. Let's say we're parting here. Now, there are several things to bear in mind. Number one is the type of wood that you're using. If it's hardwood, you need to go a little slower with regards to RPM and also with the force that you use to part off. Now, there are different opinions on the safe way to part off. If I go to this camera and pan out, hopefully you will. Right. Now, quite often, if you're parting off, you're going to be parting this off here, you will stretch over to catch the piece that you're parting off. Now, I personally always do it this way, or mostly I do, but I don't wear long sleeves and I have nothing in the way that's going to catch in the chuck. The safest way is to start the cut off, and then when you're going to low is go left-handed and hold it like so that you're not stretching over the lathe. The other way, of course, is to get down so far and then saw it off. So what I'm going to do here is just do, if I go very high, this is just for an example. Now this is ash, so it's a fairly hard wood. I'm doing 2000 RPM, okay? Now let's just say I'm going to part this off here. Now if I go in with a lot of pressure, you can see smoke. I've done that on purpose and it smells. And you can see I've burnt the end of the parting tool. Let's go back to the overhead so you can see that properly. You can see the burn mark, and I've burnt the end of the parting tool. Now this was done on purpose. Why you want to part something off at 2000 RPM, I don't know, but I've seen it done. Now the other thing is that, of course, you need to make either a relief cut, or you can do the wiggle, as I call it. Now, if I'm parting off, I really don't go much more than about 500 RPM. There's no need. It takes a bit longer, of course it does, but you won't get that burning. Now, if I go into this cut that I've already done, I'm already starting to get binding. Now, if I twist from left to right as I go in, only slightly, I'm making room for the cut. We will go a bit higher, actually. I'm making room for the cut. Now, the other way of doing it is to make a very small, as you go down, make a very small relief cut. But whoops. Now, what we're doing is, you must remember that while you're making this relief cut on this piece of wood, it's not so bad because it's straight grain, so it doesn't really matter. But if you're doing that on a wavy grain, then the more wood you take away, as I said earlier on, the less chance you have of matching that grain up.
A question before you get, Mike, before you go back in there.
Yeah.
from Cunning Stunts.
Yes, Graham.
The parting tool more than the 5mm, even though he's just sharpened it. Is the angle that it is grounded important, or is it a question of speed?
I presume you mean the bevel angle.
I would guess so, yeah.
Yeah. To be honest with you, it's. I don't know if you're in the beginning, Graham, and I use sort of a 35-degree bevel or 70-degree included angle. I don't think it matters what angle you've got. If you're parting something off like a hardwood and you're putting a lot of pressure on it, like I was, you're going to burn the wood. There is no doubt about it. Okay, when you're parting off, you can clean that up, but it's not really essential to do that. The angle of the bevel, I think, is preference. 35 degrees, 25 degrees. I don't personally think it makes a lot of difference. I like this angle, but it's not set in stone. But in answer to your question, I think the more relevant factor is the pressure you're putting on the wood and indeed the speed that you're traveling. Even, I think it's because you're going into the wood, you're binding as well. I wasn't wiggling that. I was purely putting it through under its own width. So it was touching either side, and at 2000 RPM, it's going to smoke. So that my answer is it's speed related and pressure related more than the angle of the bevel, in my opinion.
Ed's in the house.
Good evening, Ed. How are you? And welcome. So,
Adrian Olsen's in as well.
Good evening, Adrian. Nice to see you or hear you. So we're carrying on. I've made a relief cut here now, but as I explained, if you do the wiggle as you're going down, then you will not get that binding. I'm not getting much. There we are. There we go. I normally have a light because I can't see very well in here. Right, now I've got to a level where I would now be reaching over, which I personally do. However, a safer way, and if it's a bigger piece that you're taking off, a safer way is to get any saw, and I've got a pull saw here, and just put a pull saw in and saw it off. There's no danger. Apart from
if you're talking safety, Mike, do you want to just mention about not having the tailstock up when you're parting off?
Yeah, okay. Can you see it?
No, that's why you should mention it. Just in
yeah,
case.
Indeed. No, and also the tailstock with the elbow stabber should be well out of your way. And yes, I'll go on to that now. So I've sawn that off without any danger whatsoever. Left a little nub. We're going to be turning it anyway. Let's just say that was the lid. I've already got a tenon on there for doing something else later on, but that can all be cleaned up. So no problem. You don't have to have it spinning when you part it off. The other thing, as Pete just mentioned, if you have a spindle, let's just say this was between centers, or if it's a longer piece and you've got it in your chuck and you've got your tailstock up for support, when you're parting off, don't forget, as you're parting off and you're going further down, the pressure from your tailstock is going to be pushing and pushing and pushing. And always remove your tailstock before you get down to part off, because what will happen is it will push it in and it'll bind. It will go sideways. I'm not going to do a hero move and show you it. It's happened to me in the past, and it binds and it can lead to a nasty experience. Let's put it that way.
It's a change of underwear moment.
Yes, it is, because the thing is with parting off if you've got that pressure coming from the tailstock, as it gets smaller, as that contact point that you're cutting gets smaller and smaller and smaller, what's going to happen is with the spinning, it's going to move. And what happens is the pressure from the tailstock's going to win, so it's going to prematurely snap, if you like, and it's got nowhere to go, so it's going to bind and it's going to catch a parting tool and everything. It is not a good experience. So never have that up. If you have it up, at least just have the point slightly in. But I personally just don't see the point in having it.
Reduce the pressure, basically.
Sorry?
Back it off and reduce the pressure at the very least.
Yes, at the very least. But if you're in a situation like that, my advice would be to get a saw. Get a saw on it. It's a lot easier and a lot safer, and a little bit of extra work cleaning up. But you're going to be hollowing out or shaping the bits that are there anyway. So that's that. Okay, so that's the sort of the basic use, if you like, of a parting tool. Now, there are other uses. As I said, it's called and a few places will actually advertise them as parting and beading tools because they can do just that. So I'll just change the blank to a smaller piece of, let's go on the overhead so you can see me. Right, well,
James Wood Revival GB's in.
I think I said hello to Jim. I'll say hello to Jim again, I think. How are you, Jim, for the second time?
Andrew from Wivey Woodshed's in.
Ah, Wivey, Andrew, good evening. I didn't say good evening to you because I didn't know you were in, but now I do. Welcome, 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 welcome. So I'll just put the centre back in. And this is a bit from my last one. Somebody told me years ago, when you do that, what you should do is have the rest up and use that, which is very true, but I never bother. I don't know why. And then you spend time trying to get the centre. But there you go. See, that's running fairly true. Yeah, that's good. Okay, so beading and the parting tool. I have to be honest, I very rarely use the parting tool as a beading tool, but this is a guide for the newer turner, so it shows what you can do with the humble parting tool.
Go back to the overhead camera.
Yep, okay. You see, my pit crew rule me with a rod of iron, but this is all worth it because you know what I'm like with cameras. Oh, I was going to say, if it was me, you see, all we'd be doing is looking at that. There we are. So I'll carry on talking now, and I'll start saying what I'm doing. Oh, look, he's on the Pro Edge. Well, I'll be damned.
You're on the Pro Edge, Mike. Turn the Pro Edge on.
Thank you. Okay.
Please get a light from that Pro Edge to make the time quicker, just so.
That's got to have a lot of mileage, I think. Okay, so I'm going to go. I'll tell you what I'm going to do, actually. Funny enough, I'm going to go to the Pro Edge very quickly. Going to do the sharpening. The reason being is because when I burnt it, I'm not happy with the edge on there now. Okay, so the parting tool, I won't go through the three of them, but the parting tool is one of the easiest tools to sharpen, or touch up, I should say. You merely set your platform at the angle that your tool is. In this case, as I say, it's 35 degrees. Double checks. Whether it's a wheel, a grinder, or a linisher like this, you merely place it flat on the platform and just bring it up to the belt or the wheel, and that's all you need. You don't need both sides because you want to raise a burr. This has got a flat, this style has a flat for turning that way, so I know I have to raise the burr on the bottom bevel to get the burr up there, which I've done. So we'll go back to the overhead now. So that is how easy it is to. You can also use a diamond card just to touch up the burr on there. But it's so quick on the Pro Edge, I very rarely use that now for this. But nevertheless, it can be done. You can touch it up on there. Okay, so a bead. If we make a, let's just say there, and here, let's go a bit deeper. Okay, and we've got to make a bead from this now. Again, it is fairly simple. All you need to do is to ride the bevel, get the cut going, and basically what you're doing is using it like a skew. You're riding the bevel and twisting and just keeping the edge in contact with the wood and rolling over. Now I've got a catch there because this point caught. What you have to do is remember to keep the pressure on and don't let this top edge come in contact with the wood.
Jennifer Stroughton's in. Hi, Jennifer.
Evening, Jennifer. And then the same on the other side. All you're doing is literally nice and gently, no pressure needed, and keep the bevel in contact. Lift the handle, keep the bevel in contact.
You can actually get really nice beads with a parting tool, can't you?
You can. The other way, I suppose, you can actually, if you engage the edge, just twist it slightly. Engage the cut, twist the edge. Now you're riding the bevel just like a skew and lifting the handle and coming in. So it can be done. It's not something I have done. I did one this afternoon. That's that one there. And I just don't use it for doing beads. I prefer to use a spindle gouge, but there you go.
Duncan the Curly Turner, Florida bearded woodworker, and Alan Curran just come in.
Good evening. How are you? Well, what I'm saying to you is it can be used as a beading tool, and you can just tidy up the bead there and there. Primarily, in fairness, this is just me, it's not definitive. You can actually, I started here, you can actually do a rollover. You can roll over as well if you like. You rub the bevel and just lift the handle, keep bevel contact, making sure that top edge doesn't touch the wood. And you can do a rollover as well, but I'll be honest with you.
You can, but there's better ways of doing it.
Why would you want to?
Exactly.
No, I'm not doing that to show I'm clever, but it can be done. But to be honest with you, a parting tool for me is what the word suggests. It's a parting tool. And essentially, I use it purely for parting off and forming tenons. So again, I'm going to put another piece into the chuck because hopefully this angle, or the angle I'll be showing you now, will give you an idea of the action needed. Remove the tailstock.
Sebastian Ossenhofer's in.
Good evening.
Nathan Carr.
Robin
Robin
Hansen's come in.
Good evening all and welcome.
Eric Winkler.
Derek, good evening. Nice to see you.
Graham Mansfield's in.
And good evening to you, Graham, and welcome. Now, if I wanted
Change cameras, Mike.
If I wanted to form a tenon, I think I'll use this one and bring it in. There you go. How's that? Is that in focus? Yes, it is.
Stephen Madden's in. Yeah, Stephen Madden's in.
I'm just gonna. Good evening. No, normally I would clean up this with a spindle gouge, but I've got a parting tool in my hand, so I got my 5mm parting tool, so I can clean the face up, which is what I'll do. before I make the tenon. And again, one thing to note, it's never wise, and I think the camera you can see here, it's never wise to use the full width of your parting tool if you can help it when you're doing something like this, because number one, you don't get any binding. All you're doing is lifting the handle. And hopefully the camera will show how I'm approaching it. The motion you're doing, once you get the cut, it's up and over to the middle. You want the tool to be virtually horizontal when you're on the center point or thereabouts. So again, ride the bevel and then engage the cut, lift the handle, pushing forward as well, remembering, like I didn't, just to ease up a little bit when you get to the middle because it's very slow wood. So that's face that off. Now I want to make a tenon. Now I know for my sea jaws here, they're not dovetailed internally, so they have a lip on the end. And I know that the width of the jaw, or the depth of the jaw, is the 5mm plus another couple of mil, but you need to have some room between the back of your tenon and the base of the jaws, the back of the jaws. So I normally will go width of this. Now let's forget about the size, but the way to do it, it's literally going in like so, and I know that the width is approximately there.
Kieran Smith has joined.
Good evening, Ian.
Kieran.
So I know that that is a nice square shoulder, and there's my tenon. Now, with regards, as I say, to the sea jaws, I don't have to put a dovetail on there because they're not dovetailed internally. So what I do there is, because it has a little lip, I just take a thin parting tool and I make a little valley there so that the lip can engage with that and the flat of the jaws is on there. It would be a little bit deeper normally, but that's the theory behind it. So that's how to make a tenon, a very easy method. Now the wider one, my 10mm one, if I've got my what I call my gripper jaws in, they are wider than that, so I would use that to form the tenon. It gives me a guide of the depth of tenon that I'm wanting to produce. So basically I would use a parting tool for parting off. You can use it for beads. I don't. Doesn't mean to say you can't. And mainly for forming tenons. The other thing
Mike,
as well. Yes.
Sorry, can I interrupt you a sec? Kieran Smith has just said that he's watching this with his grandson, who wants to get into wood turning. He's teaching him how to turn.
Excellent.
Fantastic.
That's
We need
super.
more youngsters in the
We
craft.
do. We need more youngsters like Ed Oliver, Wayne the Woodturner, Pete Ravenscroft, Mark, and just to mention a few, Brian of Heartwood Turning. All these youngsters are coming through the craft now, which is wonderful for the older person like me. But no, it's wonderful. Never too young. My grandson is only 18 months old. He's a bit young to start. But believe me, he's walking now and he can stand. So he's not far off holding a chisel in his hand, I can tell you.
Notice she didn't say Ed Oliver in that group.
No, I nearly did, but I thought, no, I'm not going to lie. Okay, so the parting tool essentially, I know it's not a fantastically sort of interesting subject, but it's an important tool insofar as it has an important function. And for the newer turner and the beginner turner, that is my take on it. If either my pit crew or anybody in the chat has any questions or has any suggestions to show, then please feel free. The stage is yours for this moment.
Mike has just authorised you all to own more than one parting tool. I own 4.
Right.
And that by definition means that you can own a dozen bowl gauges and 5 skews, whatever else you want, because Mike says it's okay.
I own three parting tools. Yeah.
I get blamed for everything.
You do actually need a range of parting tools. I've got a 2mm one, a 3mm one, a 3mm fluted, and a 5mm.
Yeah.
And a 10mm actually. But
Question from Ed Oliver to Mike.
All have their own places.
Yes. Yes.
Question from Ed Oliver. He says, Mike Walt, when you going to retire?
Oh, I don't know, Ed. I'll have to ring you up and ask some advice, I think. Oh, you haven't retired yet? You're not old enough. Sorry, I thought you'd already retired. You've obviously had a very hard life, mate. I'll be on the phone to you later on. About 2 o'clock this morning, I'll give you a ring.
I do notice Ed is modelling his beard on yourself.
Yeah, his looks better than mine, I must be honest. What Pete was saying regarding parting tools is very true. I mean, we're all tool junkies to a point. I've actually sold more tools than I have behind me, and I've still got a terrible amount. But there are certain things. It's a bit like a power tool. If you might only use it once a year, but when you need it, you need it. And parting tool, although it's a simple tool, has a simple use. It has that use. Mine's 2.5mm, the thinnest. Pete's is 2mm, so it's 2mm, 5mm. You get 3mm, you get 4mm, 5mm, up to 10mm, whatever. There will be an application that you can use it. I mean, okay, you can make 2 cuts with a 3mm to give you a 5mm. You know, of course you can. But, you know, if you start off with a standard parting tool, you can do an awful lot. My personal opinion is the very next parting tool to get would be a thin parting tool, especially if you're considering doing boxes and things like that with grain matching necessities as close as possible. The thinner the kerf, the more chance you have of getting a good lineup of your grain. Mike, even though I'm 66 and turning less than a year, I appreciate all. Oh, that's very kind of you. I say one thing, Eric. If you do exactly the opposite to what I say, you won't go far wrong. Okay. No, I appreciate that. Thank you. The whole idea.
Woodworm Paul's asking, where can you get a good Japanese pull saw?
I don't know. This is a cheap Silverline pull saw, and it does me all right. I think Axmin's
mine from Lidl's.
Loads of people do them.
Actually, the good saw for parting off. Pull saw is the best.
Yeah, this is I tell you what. Sorry to interrupt, Pete. A tenon saw is pretty good as well.
Yeah.
Very fine teeth.
A hacksaw. You've got a hacksaw with a 24-tooth blade. Perfect.
But don't do what I've seen people do with a hacksaw. And I'm saying this to beginners, and I mean it sincerely. Do not put your hacksaw on the wood and spin the lathe. Do not do that. I've seen it done, and I cringe. And I do some things that are cringeworthy occasionally when I'm turning on my own. And I think, oh, I shouldn't have done that. But that is something, no way. Anyway, that's by the by.
You just want a narrow blade, and any saw will do. Fairly fine tooth is good.
This cost me about £4, 4 or 5 quid. It's only Silverline. It's a cheap manufacturer. I don't use it every day, 24/7. But when I need to cut off something, it's sharp. It does a good job. It's a pull saw. That's all you need. But any saw will do. It's got a fine tooth, because the lathe's not spinning. So it's a safer operation. Especially if you're doing something like a bowl or a vase. I used to try and catch them and all, and I think, no, it's not worth it, because you spend all that time on something. Well, you know me, I'll go through the bottom of it in the end anyway, but I'd like to get it off the lathe at least without it falling apart. Kind of stunts. I've got this peculiar parting tool that is more like a 2.5mm gouge. I used it once. It caused an immediate cure for my constipation. Never used it since. You have to send me a picture of that, Graham. Graham actually has become a very good friend of mine, although I don't think I've ever met him in person. I might have met him at UKIS once. No, I haven't. But however, we do chat on the phone quite a bit, and I was mortified when he used his YouTube name of Cunning Stunts because that means I just cannot drink anything. Kieran Smith, good evening. I got a Japanese saw from Lidl and it cost me £4. There you go. Kieran
Is that
Smith.
the one with the red and black handle? Because if it is, it's the same one I've got. They're good. Double-edged.
Good evening, Dave Rothwell. How are you? Looking forward to next May when you and Fee come over. We're not feeding you, mind. All the way from Canada. Ian Leonard, okay, Mark, thank you. Yeah, right, yeah. John Sullivan.
He was asking about bedans. He was asking, is a
Right.
bedan just a
Yeah.
wide parting tool? But a bedan
Well,
only has one bevel, doesn't it?
Yeah, the bedan. This was a bedan in early life, and I just didn't see the point of it. I couldn't get on with it anyway. So basically, excuse me, I can't remember what the bevel angle was, but there was one single bevel on this tool, went down to here. So and that's it basically. And there is a specific way. The French love it. The bedan is a tool that's favoured by a lot of French wood turners, and it's a very effective tool. But it's not something I got on with, and to be honest with you, I wasn't prepared to spend the time learning it because there are other tools that do the same job, in my opinion.
Deidre's asking, which drive are you using in the chuck, please?
Oh, this is a Sorby. It's a steb drive. It's like I use steb centers all the time out of habit. I've got other centers and drives, but I use the stebs. I love them because they're spring loaded. But that is a stubby drive that fits into your chuck jaws in the center. And providing you haven't got a very long profile jaw, it will fit not just in the Axminster, it'll fit in any manufacturer's jaw set. And the ideal thing with that is time. You can do your you can use your spindle roughing gouge, get your piece to round, form a tenon on it, all between centres. You don't have to change chucks or anything. Just take this out and then slide your piece in with the tenon ready cut. So that's what that particular one, and I got that one from Oliver's Wood Turning. So
yeah, I like one of those, but I don't get one until I come to visit you, Mike.
Sorry.
I won't get one until I come and visit you.
No, that's okay. You've got to pinch. You got to pinch mine, you. You won't be the first to visit me and leave with stuff that I don't know about till you've gone. Till I get a picture of it on Messenger. Look what I picked up this afternoon at somebody's. Oh, mine. Yes, I wonder where that went. Yeah. Okay. So.
Move on.
Is there any? Oh, thank you, Carson. That's very kind of you. I'm just going to pop out a picture a minute to get a can of Coke, if that's okay with everybody, because I'm getting a bit dry. I normally have my Coke here, and it's not here. So just 2 seconds, bear with me, and I'm just going to pop to the front of the garage and get my trusty can of Diet Coke and a trusty lid and my trusty face, 1 can of Coke. That's brilliant. Oh, and another point to mention, following on from last week, somebody mentioned about using face shield, etc. I didn't mention it at the beginning. I always wear these when I'm demoing. That's safety glasses. These are reinforced anyway, but as I explained last week, I wear these to stop chips going up underneath, and it's a second form of protection. That is the only time I wear these. 99% of the time when I'm turning, I will wear my full face shield come respirator. And that is how I do it. So
I've only with Colin's question about the easy wood parting tool.
Sorry.
Yeah, I've answered it.
Wood Wizardry by Collins asking, is the easy wood parting tool worth the price? I haven't got a clue what the price is, so I don't know.
I've never used one. I don't know. I think it's a flute. Is it fluted?
No, it's a carbide. It's a carbide tip, but the carbide tip is slightly wider than the body that it sits in.
Similar to a diamond parting tool, then.
But it doesn't bind. You can go quite deep with it because it's carbide.
Yeah.
It stays sharp longer.
Right. Okay. My answer would be if you want one, get one. Easy wood tools are extremely good quality. There's no argument there at all. I haven't got any because I don't use carbide for anything other than hollowing. But personally, for the amount of time that I thought, oh, I wish I had a different tool to this parting tool to part this piece off, it's never happened. The parting tools I've got do the job adequately,
Yeah.
is the answer. I don't know how much they are. You could possibly get 2 or 3 ordinary parting tools for the same.
I would say that actually there's a better argument for having a range of different sizes.
Yes, I think you're right.
One.
Yeah. I totally agree with Peter, actually. Rather than having one, a specific size, I would go for a range of sizes like Peter's just said, to be honest with you, because you will use the different sizes. And for the wood misers out there as well, forget the grain matching. You waste less wood when you part off if you use a thinner parting tool. But please, as a beginner and a newer turner, be very wary of speed and binding your tool in the cut. It is a very common misconception, and I have seen very proficient turners get into problems by actually going beneath center when there's about that much left holding the 2 bits together. So in actual fact, your tool will go under, if that's the center, which it is, and as you're parting off, like so, I've seen them go like that, underneath. So that little nub isn't going to be man enough with the top of the tool holding it, so you get all sorts of problems, especially if it's between centers.
The EasyWood parting tool is roughly 137 pounds.
Okay. The big, what I will say, is that Amazon UK?
Yeah.
Yeah. What I would say is,
Yeah, usually have deals on.
sorry, I'm just laughing at something that Ed Oliver has put down. Vast improvement using the pop-up picture. It blocks out your face. Okay. There we go. How's that? Okay. What I'm going to do now is do that. Look. Now, okay. Now I'm talking, and I look just like Mark. Isn't that marvelous? Look. Isn't that great? Yeah. Yes. Dear, oh dear. I tell you what, the things you do. Thanks, Ed. Have you got something to do, mate? Other than be here? I don't mean it. Yes, I do. No, I don't. Yes, I do. Hang on, have I messed my... No.
Oh, you're fine.
Oh, that's a shame. Okay, where was I? Somewhere boring, no doubt. Where was I? Oh, yeah. I make no bones about it. I'm sure most of you are aware, at a stage about 3 or 4 years ago, Easy Wood Tools very kindly sent me their Easy Woodchuck and jaws, and I used nothing else. Great chuck to use. However, there was a problem, and the main problem was the price in the UK. With shipping and everything else, you can understand it. And when people were asking me, is it worth the money? Hand on heart, I had to say, it's not a case of it. It is a very expensive piece of kit, and when you consider you could get 2 proprietary UK manufactured, whether they're manufactured in Taiwan or I don't care, they are UK sellers. Basically 2 for the price of 1. That's all I could say. The concept of the Easy Woodchuck is absolutely fantastic. It really is. It's a very capable chuck, but it is so expensive. And that is why, and the only reason why, we didn't fall out or anything, that I stopped associating the channel with Easy Wood Tools, not because they were no good, purely and simply was they were very expensive in comparison to UK sellers over here. And I couldn't say hand on heart, yes, it is. But in the States, they are much more value than they are over here in the UK. The parting tool, again, they are the Rolls-Royce of tools, yes, no argument, but it's a lot of money to spend when you can get 3 or 4 parting tools of different widths for the same amount of money. There you go. So, that out the way. Nathan Carr, thinner parting tool could be better for box turning as the grain pattern would line up. But yes, I did actually say that earlier on, Nathan. The thinner the parting tool you can get if you've got grain situation to match up the grain, the thinner the better. Because you haven't only got the kerf of your parting off, you've also got the kerf of your mortise or tenon. Doesn't matter. A tenon has got to go somewhere, either on the lid or on the body. So there's that bit of wood's got to be taken away as well from the outside of the wood, if you like. So the thinner, the least wood you take away, the more chance you have of matching that grain up as tight as possible.
Do you want to take me off the screen now? Because everyone's fed up with looking at me.
No, Dieter said we're a great team. And thank you, Dieter. I appreciate that. I got lucky, bought 4 Easy Wood tools for $50. Cool, that is good. I'll give you 65 for them. No, yeah. Okay. Oh, good evening, Roy Boggs. Good evening and welcome, and okay, fair enough. And good evening, Sebastian, as well. Okay. Right, well, has anybody got any more questions? Okay, Peter Cross. Mike, why don't you like the diamond parting tool? It's not a case of not liking it, Peter. I had one in my life, and that was with the Axminster tool set that I bought 10 years ago when I started turning. And it was, I think, 5mm. And yeah, it was okay. But I don't know, I just prefer, I can't honestly put my finger on it. I just prefer using what I call a standard parting tool. I think it's a little bit more flexible, maybe. I don't know. Or maybe I just like wiggling it like that. It gives me a bit more input, you know, to stop binding. I don't know. But I'm not a great fan of the diamond parting tool. Sorry, there's nothing wrong with them. Just don't particularly like them myself. Kieran Smith, on purpose when I got my grandson. Oh, right.
Good move, that.
That's a good move, Kieran.
It's a
Very good move.
And
Yeah.
it really annoys me that
Oliver's would take.
Still selling fixed speed lathes. I don't understand it. Variable speed has been around since the mid-90s. Every lathe should be variable speed. That's on sale now.
Yeah. Sorry, Pete. It's Ed Oliver again. I'm gonna have to ban him from here. I think he wants me to get rid of the big picture. Okay, I'm gone now.
Thank you, Ed.
Okay, there we go.
I appreciate that.
There you go. Right, carry on, lads.
There's no point saying that.
See, this is what gets me all the dislikes, you see, all this messing about. But do you know what? I don't care. I think we all enjoy it. We all enjoy ourselves. See, I can make Pete very thin, you see, pretend he's lost weight, or I can make him extremely portly. I'll just make him average, I think. Okay, that's fair enough. So, if there aren't any more questions, like, you know, can you get rid of the big picture and just keep the small picture and things like that? If there's no, good evening, Richard Old. How are you? Oh, Douglas Mungum. Good evening to you. Mark, what happened to the Father Christmas beard? Have you got rid of your beard, Mark?
Oh, it's only taking you an hour and a half to notice. Thanks. Yes, I did.
Oh yeah, you got rid of it. Oh, you got a grout show now.
Yeah.
Ah, Senor Mac Garbekit from Mexico.
Arriba, andale.
Arriba, andale. And then we'll have some top carpet on top. Lovely.
Dodgy 70s tash.
Yeah, I had one of them in the 70s, would you believe?
I don't doubt it.
The thick sideboards, but my hair was black then. Time out for red. Oh dear. James Woodturn in Bernard Low. I want to say good evening to you. Good evening, and hope you're keeping well. Well, I cannot believe there's 179 people here at the moment. I am absolutely blown away by that, considering all the other fare that's on offer. Excuse me. I know it's not me you want to see, it's my other two amigos from the three amigos.
Quick question there from Eric about the length of different parting tools.
Length?
Yeah, most of mine are different lengths.
Oh, right, okay. The length of parting tool I've got, unfortunately, yes, okay. I'm cheating with the Badan. Anyway, they're all on the same plane. The handles are all basically the same. There's an inch or two difference between the standard and the thin parting tool. That's the 2.5mm to the 5mm, and as I say, this one is about the same. So there's about an inch, not much.
To be fair, your parting tool is probably, if you buy one, when you start turning, you'll probably still have it in use 30 years later.
Yeah.
You're not going to wear it down.
You don't do a lot of cutting with it, so you don't need to sharpen it that often. So it's a nice lifetime.
Excuse me. The only time I actually did use a one-handed parting tool, I got a Record Power, and I'd seen this different shape, and I tried a few different shapes and had a relief angle, so I used that as my. I bought it on eBay actually, it was secondhand, and I used that as my trial, and I came up with the idea of I'll try this, I'll try that, and to be quite honest with you, a parting tool is a parting tool is a parting tool. If you use it correctly, it's sharp, it'll do the job for you. I can't get excited with parting tools, I'm sorry. They're there. I can get excited with the skew and the gouges, because if I get those working well, then I'm happy. I've achieved what I set out to achieve. Parting tool sometimes causes me problems because I'm trying to rush it too much. It did tonight a bit actually. Because I wasn't exactly right with it. When it goes right, it's nice, but all it is for me is a means of parting off a piece of wood, and that's all I use it for, personally.
Mike, do you want to move on to the scrapers now?
I was going to. That was the next thing. I'm just going to go and have.
Just get on with it, Mike.
Yeah. Okay. No problem. I'll be there now when I'm ready. I'm the boss. You're just the pit crew.
Yeah, we're the pit crew. We tell you what to do.
Okay, guys.
I was just reading a suggestion from people in the chat.
Oh, okay. I'm sorry if I've upset anybody by talking too much. I really do apologise. I mean, that is really. I mean, I'm absolutely mortified. It's sort of, this is my bloody show. If I want to chat on, I will chat on. Providing you don't mind, of course.
It's all right, everybody. Mike still isn't used to being guided.
I love it.
This program.
I must say something. I forget scrapers for a minute. These two lads have only been involved in my lives. This is the second time we've done it together. Mark did the first one, that was brilliant, and then we upped the ante a bit and we got this situation going where you can see them when I allow them to be seen, but you can hear them, and it is brilliant, and the feedback is it's worked well. I thoroughly enjoy it because it gives a lot less pressure for me to keep looking at the chat, and hopefully questions that you ask during the course of the live will be answered virtually immediately. So that's the end of that. Right, the scraper.
Can I have a rant a minute?
Yep.
Douglas, no. Do not take an industrial saw blade and spend several hours of your life filing it, cutting it, messing about with it to make a 20 quid's worth of parting tool.
Yes.
It's dangerous. It's not worth it. For 20 quid, you can buy one which will last you a lifetime. Don't mess about with it.
Totally agree, Pete. It's not worth the bother.
I have the same attitude. I have the same attitude about making a scraper out of an old file. Okay. And a lot of people, there's a lot of YouTube videos about, I managed to, get 2 different scrapers out of a file. A file is not meant for use against spinning wood. It is not meant to have an edge on it. It is meant to do filing by hand. It is not meant to be anywhere near a machine. If you get a great deal of satisfaction out of making something like that, and you're lucky enough to get away with not having a major accident with it, then good luck to you. But please don't try and force or inspire other people to do the same thing, because it's just downright dangerous, in my opinion. It's a bit like using a spindle roughing gouge on a bowl, and you know how I feel about that. Okay, so the scraper. Those of you that know me know that I haven't got, or didn't have until yesterday afternoon, any standard scrapers, because all my scrapers have a negative rake of some description. But this is a beginner's guide. So I thought, yeah, it's a beginner's guide. Let's mention negative rake scrapers. I spent a lot of time yesterday regrinding these 2 scrapers to standard scrapers. They have 60-degree bevels on both. That is what is called a roundo scraper, and that is a square scraper. 60 degrees is quite an aggressive angle. A lot of scrapers are sort of 80 degrees-ish, but anything from 80 to 55 degrees is the band that you can use. And obviously, the more acute the angle, the more aggressive it will be. Now, a standard scraper will do quite a few things. And we'll put Mr. Ash back on for doing what I'm going to show you now. So I shall stick my little stab center in there. And I'll go into my personal opinion of the benefits of having a negative rake on your scrapers. And it's not because I'm a chicken, it's because I found it to be a lot more user-friendly when I started using them. And to be quite honest with you, an excellent tool to use. And you can just put, which I will show you later on, just a little relief angle of 25 degrees on your 60-degree main bevel, and you'll be surprised at the difference. Now, how do you use a scraper? There are several schools of thought for that. The one school of thought, and I will zoom out for this actually, the one school of thought is that you ride the bevel, okay? So you ride the bevel and lift the handle into the cut. Fine, on a spindle, I haven't got an issue with that. I was shown that you raise the handle. You're cutting on center, so you raise the tool rest, so you cut on center with the handle raised. When I go to a bowl in a minute, I'll show you why I prefer the raised handle method with a standard scraper. Now, I've got the tool rest virtually. You can make nice coves. Yes?
Can I suggest the
Overhead.
the tailstock camera so we can see straight down where the cutting point is? That's it, yeah? That works.
Okay.
That's it, yep.
Okay, let's go a bit silly.
Cool.
How's that?
Good.
Is that in focus?
Yeah, that's fine. That's fine.
It's not actually. See, you've caused me grief now. Hang on.
That's what we're here for.
It's not. Well, yeah, you do a very good job, I might say. Almost too good. Automatic focus, and then go to that's it, and then go to manual. So that should be better now. Yeah. Okay. So, as I was saying, school of thought. That is just above center when it's on horizontal. Okay. We want to go down a little bit so you can see that. How's that? Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. So this is now on horizontal. So if I lift the handle, put the tool rest a bit nearer. If I lift the handle, when I engage that cut, I should be on the edge at center. So with a rocking motion, no pressure, I can get the semblance of a cove. I'm just rocking back and forth. Does that job, no problem at all. Now the other way is to ride the bevel, and as I say, I haven't an issue with this. The main issue I've got with riding the bevel is that if you should get a catch, you're going to go like that. Okay, now on a spindle, it's not that bad. You've got 2 points of contact and you are in a spindle, on a spindle, so you're fairly safe. So lift the handle, engage the cut, and I'm riding the bevel now. Now that is a scenario, in my opinion, that will get a better finish. I mean, this is, I was quite hard with that, if you like. And the finish is noticeably better riding the bevel. Now, on a spindle, I haven't got an issue at all. One more time. If I lift the handle, I'd have to lift the tool rest slightly. So if I lift the handle to be able to engage the cut on center, and I'm not applying any undue pressure to make one look better than the other. And then if I lower the rest again and use the bevel, lift the handle into the cut, I would normally be tucked into my body as well, but because of the camera, obviously I can't do that. And you will see again a better surface using it that way. Fine. Now, shall I go to a bowl straight away? Yeah, you can also use, again, why would you do it? But you can use it to round over as well. If you're riding the bevel, you can round over. But it's not so easy to show this on a spindle, so I got to stick a bowl on. And if you remember, I said before, somebody told me this many years ago, and it's very true, if you present any sharp edge to a surface of wood, what we'll do is we'll put this fella in first. So I'm going to put a bowl in, we're doing the outside of the bowl. Okay. Now again, this is a piece of ash. Let's get rid of the...
John M's got a question.
Yes, John.
He says, is there a burr doing the cutting, or is sharp edge like a skew?
No, it's a burr. I was going to come into the sharpening after I just showed you what I got to show you now, and I'll go into the sharpening. Like the parting tool, the scraper is the easiest tool to sharpen. You have a single bevel, you merely need a platform, and you put it up against your wheel or your belt, whatever you use to sharpen, and job is done. But you're raising a burr. Now, excuse me, I don't know if you can find to put a link up to a channel, Robo Hippie, a good friend of mine, Reed Gray. He is the master of the scraper. He's a production turner, or was a production turner. He sadly hasn't posted on YouTube for quite a while, but every aspect of scrapers he looks into, he almost made it his life's work. He turns bowls with them, you know, and people, oh, what, turn a bowl with a scraper? Yeah, but his scraping ability and the scrapers he's got are magic. Anyway, the point I'm trying to make is that I forgot what the point was actually that I was trying to make. Yeah, it is a burr. He will actually go along also with a hone and take the wire off, like go about 10 degrees to the edge there and take the wire off. He's tried all that. I've tried it. It does work, obviously, but I'm not into that finer cuts with a standard scraper. So yes, it is basically you are working the burr or the wire, and you can replenish that with a diamond home. You don't have to go to the grinder or your belt, but as I said before, it's so quick and easy with the Pro Edge. I just turn and do it on the Pro Edge. Okay, so I think we'll start off with the overhead. This is a bowl it might end up being a bowl. I don't know what it's going to end up being at the moment. I might even colour it at some stage. Okay, we're talking the square end scraper now. And again, the square end scraper, this is a 1 inch. And I've ground this from, I had a little relief on there. There's no relief on there anymore. Now, you can use the scraper on the outside of a bowl as at 100 degrees at horizontal, and using it literally as a shear scraper. But you have to be careful, because you don't want to get those corners involved. But if you see the type of shaving you get when you like that, it's more powder. So,
what wood is it, please, Mike?
Sorry?
What wood, please?
It's ash. It's dry ash. Now, if you turn your gouge up, like so, again, being careful of the corners, and engage that cut, you will see, eventually, we're getting very fine shavings. Bit of powder, but essentially shavings, because we've got it at a 45-degree angle to the spinning wood. And that is the area that I've just scraped or shear cut with the scraper. Now, if I'm honest with you, I don't like doing that. I find that extremely nerve-wracking, because you're not only this is a hardened rod, the Robusta hardened rod. If you've got an ordinary cast, that's going to dig in unless you round over the edges anyway, because there's square edges. You have to maintain that aspect all the way around. If you go a little bit, you're going to get a catch. So it's not an essential piece of kit, but that's what and obviously you can use it to tidy up your tenons as well, okay? Which I'm not going to do there because this is the right size, but you can use it.
The chat's gone absolutely wild here, mate.
I'm sorry?
The chat's gone absolutely wild. Everybody wants to know the date.
Everybody,
what date are you going to be colouring this piece of wood? Everybody wants to know.
Everybody, sorry, right, start again. Everybody wants to know what?
What date are you going to colour this piece of wood?
Oh.
Is it going to be before or after you turn resin?
Do you know what? I have got 2 litres of resin, i.e. hardener or whatever out there, but I'm waiting for the warmer weather before I use that, because obviously I have played with it and it's good stuff. As far as colouring is concerned, that was a joke. I leave the colouring to the experts. Ed Oliver, Martin Sabersmith, Wayne the Woodturner, Stuart Farini, and many, many others. I have a full complement of intrinsic colours, which I bought when they first came out. I also have a full complement of chestnut products, which I bought 10 years ago, which I'm sure have gone off. I've used them maybe twice or 3 times. End of story. But I might actually do some colour one day.
If you keep saying things like that, I'm going to pass out.
Say again.
I said, if you keep saying things like that, Mike, I'm going to pass out.
I have to say, as I've said before, I do enjoy colouring with regards to the fact it's like being like a kid in primary school. You know, you got your paints. Hang on, we'll have a little 2-minute chat. You got your paints and, you know, messing around, and if you're lucky, it turns out to be something quite nice, and someone says, God bloody hell, you've really got some talent, haven't you? Yeah, I was very lucky there, wasn't I? But people like Martin and Wayne and Ed Oliver and Stuart, they know what they're doing. It might look as if it's a bit random, but they know the colours to put on, the base and so on, and it is an art. It's an art I haven't learnt, and to be quite honest, I've got too much to learn about ordinary turning, as everybody will know, before I start going into colour, which I very much doubt I will ever do. Okay, so those are the...
Douglas, we are doing negative scrapers a bit later on.
Yes, we are going to do negative scrapers in a second. What I'm going to do very quickly is get rid of my elbow stabber, and I'm just going to put... I'm doing this for a reason. The reason being... well, I'm not going to change camera because I'm just taking this bowl out. The reason I'm doing what I'm doing in the way I'm doing it, I'm doing everything just with a standard scraper at the moment. And then I will sing the praises and tell you why I prefer using a negative rake scraper. And I will go through my angles I've used, I've tried, and how easy it is to turn a standard scraper into a negative rake scraper. Okay, so I have now got a another bowl, which is not finished, on the lathe, and
It's a lovely shaped bowl, that. Mike.
yeah, it's lucky, isn't it? Yeah, I bought it ready turn from Ed Oliver, actually.
Did Ed turn it?
Yeah, I certainly didn't. Okay. Again, nerves isn't the word. I'm not nervous. I'm just not at all happy doing this because it's not something I have done for many years, apart from this afternoon, and I didn't get a catch then, so I might be lucky now, although I might not be. Okay. The other thing I meant to say, sorry, we've got this round nose scraper and the square one I showed you. This is in a negative rake form, but this is a standard, it was a standard crown bowl gouge, okay, bowl scraper. And I turned it into a negative rake because that's what I prefer. So there are many different types of standard scraper that you can get. You can get box scrapers. I have one of those as well, but I've actually put a relief angle on that as well because I find it a much more, not just user-friendly, but a more effective tool, in my opinion. Now, this is where we could get a catch. Now, you would normally, for inside of a bowl, use a bowl scraper. But if you turn the...
Ed is full of confidence for you. Mike.
Yeah, that's good. If you turn the gouge to get an edge on it, the cameras are in the way and everything. I don't know if you can see, I'm actually getting a shaving, okay, because I'm approaching the wood at an angle, and I'm only showing you this because this is what can be done. I'm not saying I say it's a great idea to do it. Now, the important thing we were talking about earlier on is raising the handle or not. Now, this is an instance where, in my opinion, I mean, this is going over the rest too much anyway, but say you want to do the side here. If I was going to use this as a shear scraper, I would be wanting to cut on center with the handle raised. Now, the reason for that is this. If I ride the bevel, okay, the bevel is riding. If I get a catch, the wood, it's got to go the whole length. It's going to go about, if I get a catch there, it's about 2 inches before it releases from the wood. So that's going to blow me bowl, without shadow of a doubt. If, however, I have cutting on center with my handle slightly raised, like so, if I get a catch which I will demonstrate with the lathe not revolving, what's going to happen is it's going to take it down there, out of the way. I'm not holding it properly. Look, I'm holding it there. Does it show? Yep. Let's say there. Okay. I get a catch. It's going into air. It's not going to, it hasn't got the bevel and the rest of it to grab into. So that's my personal opinion. It's not set in stone, but it's something I personally would never do. I would never ride the bevel. Even if it was only an 80-degree bevel, I wouldn't ride the bevel on the inside of a bowl. That's a personal opinion. Okay.
177 people have just put on their face shields.
Don't worry, I'm not going to spin up. Not with this, I'm not. So that is basically the scraper. You can do other things with it, but again, I tend to use a scraper for refining. And I don't use a scraper, I use a negative rake scraper. Now, at this juncture, I'm going to go to the Pro Edge. As I said earlier on, it is the easiest tool to sharpen. This is set to, the bevel angle on this is 60 degrees. So I set my table to 60 degrees, and it doesn't matter if it's a linisher or like this, or a wheel oxide or CBN, makes no difference. You merely set the table to the desired angle you want, and you present it to the wheel or the belt, and that's all you do. And there you have replenished your bevel, period. Now, you heard me say about negative rake. How easy is it to get a negative rake? Very easy. I've now altered this to 25 degrees. 60 degrees, 25 degrees on here. I'm going to make this into a negative rake scraper. In front of your very eyes. Four passes, not perfectly, yeah, not too bad. Okay, that is now a negative rake scraper. But the burr is the wrong way. So I've made the negative rake by putting the, what I call, this is a relief angle basically. So I put my table back to 60 degrees, a couple of passes, and I now have a negative rake scraper. Okay, cut to overhead.
Quick question.
Yep.
I'm not quite sure what they're getting at, but Man with 2 feet says, do they recommend using the safety guards on the Pro Edge? Presumably means on the side of the belt, in which case, yes, they do.
Yes, they do. I've got the, I always put them on. In honesty, if I'm doing major reshaping, I leave it. I'll leave the side off, but that's my choice. I wouldn't recommend it to anybody because you've got spinning wheels inside there. But I must be honest, if you get your fingers stuck in there, there is something seriously wrong with you. You shouldn't be allowed near machinery. But there you go. Yeah, I mean, the main thing for that is for safety for the spinning stuff inside, but it's also to retain to a certain extent the metal powder that comes off when you're doing your sharpening. So we have now got a negative rake scraper, okay, and I can now present this tool to this bowl at center height with the at center height, producing a nice shaving I'm not getting any catches. No, it is so much easier. And you can see what's happening there. And there is absolutely no anxiety is too strong a word. There's no concerns on my behalf when I approach that piece of wood with a negative rake scraper. And bearing in mind, I've just got, it's not proper, I would do it a bit more. You know, I would make that a bit wider. But there is no concern with me at all with presenting that tool. It is so forgiving and it is so effective. Obviously, my favourite negative rake is a 3535, which this started life as a roundo scraper like this one, and it is now 30, 35, 35. Reason for 35, 35 is easy to sharpen. The only thing is you have to remember which side you hone up because you need to raise the burr. So that's why I have the label there, and I always present it that way. So I always just touch up here. Okay. Easy to achieve. All you're doing there is an extension and a bit more work to what we did there on the top. But the beauty of it is,
would it be better if the pro was going the other way around to raise the burr?
no.
My experience, no.
Doesn't matter, because it's exactly the same thing with the wheel. The abrasive is coming down onto the edge. It's just funny. People get this idea, and I agree with you, Douglas. I had that same. I can't get my head around it, but believe me, it does work. You almost feel you want to do it upside down, so you're raising the burr. But I can assure you, that's the way I use this 35-35, and there is a keen edge that is upside down for me, and there's no burr there. But I'm here, and I will take that over to the Pro Edge this very minute.
Dave Otie is asking, is it worth putting a negative rake scraper on the Axminter tool set you gave away, or is it too small to bother with? In my opinion, every scraping box should be negative rake.
Yeah, I personally, coming back, who asked that question?
That was Dave Otie.
Dave, yes. The reason I didn't do it on there was purely and simply because it's a standard set. But it takes seconds to put a relief angle on there and get you start practicing using a scraper as a shear scraper in a lot more safety than learning a standard scraper with a lot less chance of catching.
I've got a negative rake on my 3/4 inch round nose scraper. Works fine.
Yeah.
It's a lovely little tool. Gets in small spaces.
Brilliant. I'll show you what I've got later on. But anyway, this, as I say, started life as a standard. Can you see the standard scraper? I spend quite a bit of time shaping it this way. I've got 35-35. Again, I've got my platform at 35 degrees. And all I have to do, making sure I know that's how I will approach my work with the label up. So all I need to do is to do this. And I've refreshed that burr, and as magic would have it, Douglas, the burr has been raised. So that's as easy as it is. And now with this little chappy, again on centre height. Now I am not in the right position for doing that. I'm stretching. I'm completely out of my comfort zone with regards to comfort, but I've got no issue doing that from all the way out here.
Mark Williams is asking, would you put a negative rake on a square end scraper?
Yes, without a shadow of a doubt, I would.
Yep.
Even if it's only a 25, what I call a relief angle, it immediately makes it less aggressive. Oh, no, not less aggressive, less user-friendly. But be aware, obviously, as soon as you make an angle more acute, Mark, is that you? Are you taking a drag of your vape?
No, it was me
Oh,
putting my
right.
microphone up.
Oh, I thought you were having stomach problems. um, sorry, ladies and gentlemen. Yeah. Where was I? Yeah, even on a square end, and as luck would have it, I haven't got one. But yeah, even on a square end, I mean, these are the two little ones I use for little half-inch ones. Now that's my little half-inch goblet. That was a half round, a round nose scraper, and I've turned that into a 35 negative rake box and goblet scraper, if you like. And there's a negative rake on my little one, and that is the one I took the negative rake off to show, and I will be putting it back on there. Just a 25 degree on the 60 degree main bevel.
Yeah, it doesn't really need to be a major negative break as long as there's something there.
Yeah,
I also find it lines up the tool rest with the last tool you're using better. Normally you'd be coming off a bowl gauge.
yeah, yeah,
You've got a
yes,
negative break. It
yeah,
probably is the same size if it's straight on that same tool rest
yes,
without adjusting it, and you can go straight into it. Whereas
yeah,
if you don't have a negative break, you need to stop and adjust your tool rest before you move on.
yeah. I've just noticed Douglas said you asked because holding on a normal scraper, you push the metal up from the bottom. Completely right, Douglas. I totally agree with you. But if you consider that, you know, even if you've got a wheel, the wheel is coming down onto the metal, so it raises. It does raise the burr. But yes, I understand, and it's not a silly question at all. It's a very pertinent question. I have to say that until yesterday, all my scrapers had a negative rake of some form on them. The reason I say is many because I've done a lot of testing over the years with negative rake, and I can't fault it. Yes, the edge on this, for example, will not last that long, but it's no big problem to just touch it up and carry on. You'll get 2 or 3 passes. You most probably get 4 or 5, but I like it to be as sharp as possible. And I have, like Douglas says, I've honed the edge of this, and that works fine as well. But it lasts even less time. But you know, the angles are personal. It's not a great deal of steel away if you alter them by a few degrees. It's not an exact science. I just find 35 extremely good, but I also have 25-60, which I find very good as well. The brilliance of, and I'm going back to the camcorder now, the brilliance, in my opinion, of these cut this way, whether it's 60-25 or in this case 35-35, is that you literally, I won't say you can't get a catch, well of course you can, but you have no worries about are you riding the bevel, have I brought it up enough or too much, am I going to get a catch, have I got it at the right level here. You can go in and you can be off center. It cuts best on center when horizontal, but if you're a little bit above or a little bit below, no big deal. You ain't going to get a catch. I'll go below. All it does is not give such a good cut. I've got the handle raised there, so I'm below center. I've got the handle dropped. I'm not riding the bevel, but I'm still getting a cut. And if I go in the middle, that's when I get the best. I mean, there's a few shakes in this, and I actually put some CA in it this morning because there's a crack in it as well.
Yeah, we noticed.
But you can see, look, I mean, nice fine shavings. So the other thing, as I say, is the bowl scraper, which is much heavier, obviously. Again, doesn't have to be in the perfect position This one will most probably need a little bit of sharpening actually, but there's no point in. Well, I can do that. It won't take 2 seconds. I'll just walk away a minute, and again remembering, being that I'm doing the inside of the bowl, that I want the underside bevel. So I've just put this bevel on the machine, raise the bevel there. And if I was using this on the outside, all I would do is flip it over, go the other way on the grinder or Pro Edge, and that would raise the burr this side. So again, now with the burr fresh, very light.
Alan the Woodpecker's asking, what speed are you running at, Mike?
1200 revs. This is about an 8-inch bowl. So, but it's not in fine fettle, to be honest with you. But yeah, the point I'm making is it's much safer, in my opinion, using a negative rake, and I have absolutely no qualms in recommending a negative rake on any type of scraper. And there are some people that will disagree. Well, of course they will, and that's fine. I mean, it's not a definitive question, a definitive statement. It is just what I personally have found and what I feel personally happier using. What I'm going to do now is be one more use of the standard scraper, or indeed the negative rake scraper, and that basically will then throw it out to questions to everybody or any comments that you wish to make. I'm just going to put a little thank goodness it's the last few bits of chestnut. I really don't like working with chestnut. It's very dusty. And of course, with a standard scraper, you can use it. Let's come in a little bit. Ooh. You can use it as a hollowing tool as well. So we'll go with the standard. Oh, I haven't got a standard one now. Well, we can't use the standard. Can we pretend that that's a standard one? Not really. All that time. Hang on, I might have actually.
A little squint, slightly.
No, I haven't. I thought I did. Ah, yes, I have. There we are. I got one left for demonstration purposes only. This is a standard Litley. This is the 1/2 inch, and that's got a standard grind on it. Again, 60 degrees. And yes, you can use them. There's nothing wrong with using a scraper to hollow, but because it's I won't be riding the bevel like that. That's not very thingy. Never mind, don't matter. It's the end here. So you just go in and rock. Now I have got the handle raised on this.
Asked, what's the consensus? Does the scraper scrape or cut? My answer to that is yes.
Right, I've just got to say the scraper in this mode is scraping. There's no two ways about it. If I turn it on its side, like so, and go across the face of this end grain at 45 degrees, I'm getting the semblance of a shaving on my little finger. I'm actually slicing the fibres there because the wood is coming down onto the edge at approximately 45 degrees. It would be nice if it was if it was concentric as well. Hang on, let's just get this out of the way. Okay, that's a bit better.
Essentially, they do scrape, but they can.
Yeah, they essentially, if I'm in the normal position of raised handle and I go across this, I am scraping. As soon as I go to approximately 45 degrees, you can see, I think the camera picks it up, that I'm getting a shaving because it's going, the wood is attacking. There we are. But I mean, chestnut is not the best wood anyway for a lovely shaving. So you can imagine if my 1 inch was still in standard mode, you could use it as a hollowing tool. And I'm going at it a bit hard. If you go at it nice and softly, then you get a half decent finish as well. So, don't be put off with the fact, oh, people say you shouldn't use a scraper for this. You use what you like. If you're happy using it, you use it.
What carbide tools do most of the time.
Yes. Apart from even those now have come to a situation where they have dished bits now, so they're actually cut the material. So this is the 1 inch with a very small relief bevel on it, and I'm actually level on center basically. Look at that. You can see immediately I'm getting a much better, I'm going quite hard at this. I'm getting a nice shaving. If I go nice and light, let's go nice and light on center. Look at that shaving coming off there. Let's look at the surface of that. And that, as I say, is chestnut. A pretty good surface as well. You could use it for your hollowing. Be aggressive with it if you want to. I'm pushing quite hard here. I've got no qualms doing that. I'm really pushing now. I'll have to replenish the edge. But the point I'm making here is I haven't got any problem about getting a catch. I'm being almost blasé with it because it makes it so much more user-friendly if you've got that little, just a tiny little relief on the top there. And I beg to suggest that there are quite a lot of people, especially the newer turners out there, will say, oh, I don't want to do that because that's not how it should be done. Don't think that. If you can get to use something in a safer manner, then in my opinion, do it. That's why I use that. When we go on to the skew chisel, I've only got, that's why all my skews have a radius. I have a straight part at the top here, always have done, but it's a radius. That's me. Not because I'm a chicken, I just find it works better for me with the amount of time that I'm able to put into the skew chisel. But that's for another live in a couple of weeks, 4 weeks time, whatever, after we've done the bowl gouge. So I think
Bill Smith is asking, is there a better tool to use than another on end grain?
Is there a better tool? What, to hollow?
Yeah, that's what he means.
If I'm hollowing end grain, which I do quite a bit of, goblets, boxes occasionally, but mainly goblets, I use a spindle gouge. Either a 3/8 spindle gouge or a 1/2 inch spindle gouge. Or indeed, you could use a 3/8 bowl gouge. And you can use that in two ways. You can either use it, I did this on I think I did on a live a little while ago. You can do it two ways. You can do a pull cut, you can do a push cut, or you can do the cut that I can't do, the proper back hollowing method. And that leaves a really, especially when you're doing a push cut, leaves a really nice surface on it. But again, if you're hogging wood out, the final cut, if you like, I personally, if I'm doing a goblet, my final cut would be done with the 35 negative rake scraper. And that will give me a finishing cut if I do it correctly. If I'm on song that day, it will give me a lovely surface. I can start sanding at 180 easily. And that's not bragging, right? That's just the tool doing the job. So, for hollowing, personally, small stuff like that, end grain. If you're doing an end grain bowl, then I use carbide to do my hollowing normally. And indeed, you could use a mini carbide to do the hollowing of end grain as well, because that is cutting. Because they're dished cutters, they're not scraping cutters. I mean, I've got some great hollowing tools, but I still tend to use a spindle gouge when I'm doing a goblet because it's habit, I think.
Skews actually make quite good negative rake scrapers, don't they?
Yes, they do, and I will
You
cover that
effectively
when I
are.
do the skew.
Yeah.
Yeah, they do. I mean, look. Most skew angles or bevels are 25, 35 degrees anyway. I mean, the rule of thumb, if there is such a thing, is that the size of the bevel should be 1.5 times the thickness of the bar stock. Not the width, but the thickness of the bar stock. Whether that's true or not, I don't know. But I tend to use that's a 1/2 inch screw. I know it's a radius, but that's the size, and it's approximately, I don't know what it is exactly. It's about 25 degrees, I think. Yeah, it is 25 degrees, written on the back. Look, so I don't forget. So yeah,
My skews are at 15 degrees, but I like an aggressive skew. So
yeah, that's fine. I mean, it's what you're used to. It's what you want to use. I mean, I've seen people use scooters with a very small bevel on it, which is obviously not being funny. It's easier to use. It's less aggressive, and they get a good cut, and it'll last longer. I mean, as I say, it's the same for a skew chisel. At the end of the day, the more acute your angle, the keener your edge, the less time it's going to last. But I personally am not a champion. I really, really push negative rake scrapers. People to try it to see how much easier and effective they are than a standard scraper, and a much quicker learning curve.
Benjamin's asking, when doing your goblets, Mike, would you say you get a better finish from the negative rake scraper than the spindle gouge?
Yes, definitely. I can get a fairly, and this is not bragging rights, I can get a fairly, if I'm on song, I can get a fairly good finish off the tool. It depends what the wood is as well. But I tend to use a negative rake scraper to finish off the inside of a goblet. Not so much on a demo piece, but if somebody's asked for one, I'm doing a commission, that's a very posh word, but you know what I mean, someone's asked me to do a goblet for them, then I will always use a negative rake scraper. And there have been occasions when it's really been perfect, the wood's been good as well. I've thought, you know what, if I use 180 on that, it's going to cause more damage than straight on with a 240, which is basically what you can do with an extremely good skew planing cut. Not the likes of me, but it can be done. If you've got the right wood, you've got a really good cut, you can start abrasion at 240. Done that very often with me, but it has happened. Yeah, so the answer is yes, I use my negative rake. Look, if I watch Ed Oliver, and Ed Oliver's a good mate of mine, and he's got, in fairness, he's got incredible tool control, as has Wayne the woodturner on his bowls. I'm not a bowl turner per se, and they very rarely use any form of anything. As far as I'm aware, I've never seen Ed use anything other than his tools to get a finish and then sanding. I tend to normally leave a tool mark or two, or a bit of a divot. Even if it's only slight, I can feel it. So I will go over it with my negative rake scraper, and that does the job for me. And I haven't got an issue with doing that,
Simon Barnard is asking, so when would you not use a negative rake? Never.
The answer would be no. The answer would be if I got what I would term a perfect cut, and the surface was as good as I would get almost as a negative rake, then I would leave it.
oh yeah, if you've got to cut off the
Yeah,
tool,
if you've got a good
you're going to
finish
use
off the
those
tool,
scrapers.
yeah, then don't use a scraper at all.
No.
I think he means as opposed to a normal scraper.
Yes, I would. As I said earlier on, you might have missed it, but I'll say it again with pleasure. Until yesterday, I didn't have a normal scraper in my armory, apart from those two little ones for demonstration purposes. I never use them. I always use a negative rake scraper in some form or another, whether it's 60-25 or whether it's 35-35. Always use negative rake scraper. That's me personally. I don't see.
I would say to Brian, if you've got a scraper in your hand and you're at the sharpening station, just knock 25 degrees off the top edge. Doesn't have to be a lot, just 25
try it.
degrees.
Try it.
Yeah.
Try it. If that works for you, possibly go to 30 degrees. Just find what works for you. Most of mine are 25, to be fair. do have one which is a 35-35, which I think might walk to rainfall.
The 35-35, in fairness, does take a little bit of time. I did it over a period of time. You can get your 35 on the edge quick, quite quickly, and that's all it needed. But if you want the perfect bevel, it does take time. I mean, if I can bore you a minute just with this one, there's still steel to go here. Can you see? There's still a bit of steel there, and a bit of steel there, and I've had this like this for maybe a couple of years, because there's no way I was going to waste all that steel to get the perfect bevel to look. As long as that's the business end there, not this pretty bit at the end. And this is like half-inch steel, so there's no way I'm going to waste that. So it'll be perfect one day. But
Dave Odie says he's going to be regrinding his scraper to negative rake tomorrow.
You try it, Dave. Try it, Dave.
You won't regret it. No.
But you
I mean, something's come in after I started my learning curve.
Yeah.
And as soon as I started to use it, then every scraper I picked up to sharpen.
Yeah, exactly.
So they started off with just 25 knocked off the top, just very quickly, and that's developed into a proper negative rake as I found my level.
Yeah. I think it's a no-brainer. Honestly, I really do. Not to try it, because it is, as I explained or showed on this, I did 2 sweeps and I got a little tiny 25-degree angle there. Obviously, I would do more. I will do more on this for my normal use. But that little 25-degree, a couple of passes, made the difference between not life and death, night and day. And it made it such an easy tool to use. I could use it like that. I could use it like that. I could use it as it should be used, like that, where you get the best results. But there's no drama. No drama at all. And the beauty of it is you can find the sweet spot. And that tool rest doesn't have to be smack on. It can be a little bit too high, a little bit too low. And this fella is not going to bite you in the backside if you get it that bit wrong. Where a proper scraper, a standard scraper, is a great tool, but it can bite you very, very easily and cause quite a bit of, not damage to you as such, but it can wreck your pieces, and it can mess your confidence up. So why not put 25-degree on your scrapers? Make it a bit easier, especially when you're learning, and it does give a great finish. Here endeth the lesson.
One person we need to give credit to is probably Stuart Batty. Although he didn't invent the negative rake,
no,
he popularized it, and is probably the world resource on its use.
Possibly is, yeah. I mean, I've been using negative rake for, I don't know, 6 years, 5-6 years. And I can't remember. I've watched a lot of Stuart's stuff, a lot of it, especially his bowl turning. But I can't remember who it was that inspired me to have a go. All I know is that I thought it might have been Reed Gray actually had mentioned it. So me being me, I just went off to the grinder and started fiddling around with different angles, and then it inspired me to do a video on it. Just look what I found. I haven't invented it, but this is what I found, this way of this alternative way of scraping. And
then you find things out and you spread the word.
Well, Stuart Batty didn't invent them. He borrowed the technique from the old ivory turners, because
yes, that's right.
They used negative rake scraping on ivory because it gave a better finish.
Yeah.
And he developed it further onto bigger scrapers, but it was actually the old 19th century ivory turners who who invented it. Yeah. And he does give them credit for it.
Yeah. Sorry to cut across you. James Wood Revival. has asked me why Simon Home negative rake scrapers will almost look upside down compared to others. It's just his way of doing it. Right, if you look at
The round ones, the round, big
yeah,
round ones are
my
good.
big round one I've got in the drawer actually. But anyway, if no, that's not a good example. I'd say my big round one's in the drawer. Here we go. It's the box scraper, same idea. So you've got the round scrape. What it is, James, there is your main bevel. This is a bit messy because I was using it the other day. There's your main bevel, and that is your relief bevel there, okay? But the reason that's there is for two reasons. Number one, it means that you can use the whole, you don't have to worry about this being, you can be really close because it's all level here. And it is ground that way. It's just that is what you raise the bevel on there, on the smaller bevel, because you've got the weight and you've got the stability of this on there, and it does work extremely well. There would be absolutely nothing stopping me to turn that over and grind that. Let's try it. Shall we? Let's try it. Hang on a minute. Bear in mind, this is how I've already just done this very quickly. 60-degree angle there. I'm not sure what Simon's are, but 60-degree angle there, and I've got a 25-degree relief there. Okay, so what we'll do is go to the Pro Edge. Now, that's how I would normally grind this at 60 degrees on here, correct? And that would raise the burr. Now, what I'm going to do now is to do this first, do this and not go back to grinding at 60. So I'll be raising the burr on the relief angle.
Brian was saying that another consideration is the hardness of the wood. Softer woods do not produce a good surface when negative scraped.
Correct.
Softer woods don't produce a good surface when scraped. They need to be cut, not scraped.
Exactly. I quite agree. Softer woods, again, as Brian says, softer woods don't produce off any tool as good a finish as a harder wood will. You know, so the same, you know, whether it's a gouge or whatever, you have to be more careful, higher speed, lower traverse, slower traverse with a softer wood, especially punky woods like, you know, spalted beech, etc. But on harder woods, you can expect a better finish off the tool, irrespective of what the tool is. And I'm not being flippant saying that, Brian, but I know exactly what you mean. Now, this could go wrong. It most probably will, actually, but we'll see. So what I've done, I've raised the burr on the what should be the relief angle. So I got to get center on there. So oops, I've got to use it that way, upside down, to see if it works. Bet it doesn't. No, doesn't work. So why won't that work? I'm just going back to the grinder a minute. I'm not going to change the camera, it's not worth it. So why won't that work? I know why. No. Oh, hang on. Just thought something. Ah, there we go. Yes, it will work. Oh, I know why. Too high, that's why. Stupid boy. There we go. It's not brilliant, but I've only done one thing. But on here you can see I'm getting a shaving. Would need a bit more work on it, but yes, it does work essentially. But I mean, it's not designed. I must remember to do that properly now. The angle, the angle here is totally different. I don't know what the angle is, to be honest with you. I can't remember. It's about. I can't remember what the angles are, but it's the angles are obviously quite crucial on that. But in essence, it does work if you reverse it in a homemade negative rake scraper, if you like. Thanks, Eric. You're not being negative, my friend. Thanks very much for popping in. I appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, has anybody got any other questions or anything they'd like me to do? Doesn't look like it.
Yep, looking good there. There was one earlier, actually, going back to the parting tool.
Yeah.
Somebody said about using the V block to give yourself a square edge when
Yes, you can. Yeah.
Putting that on the belt.
That was good point. That was remiss of me, but the reason I don't use the V block is not because I'm a clever little fella. It's because the Simon Hope double-ended. It's a parting tool. The other end is a round skew, which I will be showing in a couple of 2 or 4 weeks, whatever. And in fact, although you have a flat there to put on your rest, this does not reach. When you've got the angle there, you start going into the round. So the V block really is of no use for sharpening this one. But it's not a problem, because I mean that just goes on, and I line it up right to the right of the belt so I can see I'm square, and it does the job. But yes, you can use the V block to. I use the V.
Marker pen on mine.
Pardon?
I use marker pen on mine.
Oh right, that's fine. Yeah.
It's my Sorby. It's my table. I draw lines on.
Yeah, that's right. I quite agree. I don't use the Sorby locking nut either. I use a locking lever.
Yeah.
That's just me, personal. Mark explained perfectly with our retail. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah. TJ turning Mike. If you use a skew as a negative rake, would you still have to raise a burr? Yes. Yeah. I mean, when you sharpen a skew, essentially, when you think about it, if you do both sides of the skew, you've got to leave a slight burr on one of the sides. And I'm always aware, I'll always, if I'm doing a planing cut, I will normally do a planing cut from right to left. So when I'm touching up a skew, I will do both sides, but I will do the side consciously that I need to do to raise that slight burr. But I mean, the thing is with a skew chisel, I don't know why there is a difference, to be honest with you. I'm not technical. I'm not technically minded regarding the physics, but I, to be quite honest with you, I don't find that I will do it consciously. If I'm going left or right, that will be the last pass on the grinder, will be the one I'll be using as the underside, if you like. But then, if I go the other way, I still get a good cut.
Yeah.
Go figure.
Most of my
If it works.
tools are Sorbies.
Yeah.
And they have printing on one side of the blade. And I've just evolved a habit of doing that side last.
Yeah.
So I know that if I've got the printing side upwards, then if there is a burr to be considered, that's where it is.
Yeah. It's very similar to the Henry Taylors I got, the handles. Like, for example, with the 3535, I'll always make sure that I use it with the label up, if you like. And on one of the scrapers, one of the parting tools, I just put a little mark on the handle, on the quick release handle, so I know that's the side I need to keep. There are lots of little tricks, tips and tricks that people use, and I think at the end of the day, I'm not the sort of person that can go too technically into things, because as long as I can explain how it works, I don't think it has to go into such detail, personally. But there is no harm in learning the technical side of things either. Glad you enjoyed it, Alan. Thanks very much for coming. I do appreciate it. I'm amazed there's still 118 people here. Well, if no one has got any further, my phone has been pinging, so for those of you that have bought me and the lads a cup of coffee, I really appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. It is very kind of you, and it all goes into the channel, and I do split it with the lads as well. Not that they deserve it, but, you know, there you go. I've got to sleep at night. I've got to sleep at night. Good night, Bram. Thanks very much. Glad you enjoyed it. Cheers, mate.
You're a funny man.
Thank you, Martin. Yeah, very strange. Yes, I know. I'm just going to go to the break and let you carry on for a minute, because I haven't had a vape in 2 hours, which is a record for me. I'm feeling the fist might be going through the camera. No, hang on. just a quickie. Just a quickie.
These Rosmans are that going, don't they? Well, thank you, Adrian. Yeah, hopefully there's bits in there for everybody, even the experienced turners.
And if you're really unfortunate enough, you can watch me do a live tomorrow night at 8 o'clock GMT, BST. I might even be using a skew.
Good man. Good man. Yeah, don't forget, folks, Mark is doing a live tomorrow, 8 o'clock. I will do my very, very best to be there, Mark, I assure you. I'm back to work Wednesday, and I have to take my good lady out Tuesday. I say have to. That's a terrible thing to say. We're going shopping. Going shopping, innit? Oh, lovely.
Any boots or them shoes?
She said to me, I haven't bought a handbag for months and months and months. I said, yeah, it's good, isn't it? That's why the bank balance is looking so good. That's really, really a terrible thing to say when you come in here, and I think I dread to think over the years what's gone in here, but there you go.
It's necessary.
Of course it's necessary. It's necessary. I don't go to the pub, you see, so, you know, that's always what I say. Somebody says, oh, you're always in the garage, aren't you? No, I'm not always in the garage. I'm in the garage where I would normally be in the pub. But I don't go to the pub anymore, you see. Well, not that I could for the last God knows how long, but I'm not a pub person anymore. Hey?
There are no pubs at the moment anyway. Well, it's outside.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, you go outside. We might be going out for lunch on Wednesday on the way back, find a pub garden somewhere. But, right, guys, I think if everybody is happy, or as happy as they can be, I'd like to thank you all very, very much for coming tonight. It's been a great pleasure serving you again. Huge thanks to my pit crew, Mark Beckett and Pete Ravenscroft, Pete Twisted Trees and the Gentleman Wood Turner. Don't forget, Mark is on tomorrow night at 8 o'clock. Hopefully I'll see you then. And with that, I shall bid you all a good night. I won't be living next Sunday because I am working, but hopefully 2 weeks tonight I'll be back on again. So you can make sure that you've got something else to do. Well, thanks very much for coming, as I say, and thank you all for those that bought coffees, and I look forward to seeing you in a couple of weeks' time, if not before an edited video. Good night and cheerio. Good night from the lads.
Night all.
Good night, everyone.
Bit louder, Mark.
Good night, everyone. It may not switch over.
Yes, it did.
There we
There
go.
we go.
There we go.
Cheers. Good night.